Father, it's me, Michael. I did it. I found it. It was right where you said it would be. They were all there. They didn't recognize me at first, but then they thought I was you. I'm going to come find you. I'm going to come find you.
Michael Afton is the closest thing the Five Nights at Freddy's game series has to what I would call a good character. The others here fill their roles just fine, but Michael's the only one with depth that's actually conveyed to us in the story. And analyzing his character to better interpret it is going to be a significant portion of this video. Different from our normal format. So yes, my name is TDreader, and this is the fourth part in my Five Nights at Freddy's interpretation series, which will eventually turn into my magnum opus. You can find the last part in the info card here. Now then, with no further delay, let us enter inside of Michael Afton. Now, depending on your interpretation of the story, Michael Afton is the character with the most dialogue and appearances. The common consensus is that he appears in FNaF 4 as Foxy Bro, at least Five Nights at Freddy's sister location and Five Nights at Freddy's 6, and the Survival Logbook. We'll be covering these appearances in the order of 4, sister location, Logbook, and then 6. Lastly, I'll likely regurgitate a couple points from Bonk Boy when it comes to Michael's actual spoken lines in sister location. So credit to him and others will be given in the paste bin in the description.
La 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 la, hey yo man, this the purple guy son. He got entered inside of a barrel.
We receive an indication about the nature of Mike and the crying child's relationship almost immediately, with the fact that this Foxy plush has had its head torn off, likely by the crying child as a response to his brother scaring him with the Foxy mask. I don't think Mike is using the head of the plush as the mask, which I've seen some people say, because all the plushies we've seen throughout the series up until now are rather small. The crying child does, however, refer to the plushies as his friends, so it seems he's removed the head out of fear rather than an emotion such as hatred. Our next minigame shows us two important things. The first, that Michael likes to jump out and scare his brother. The second is that the house has no grown-ups present. A trend that continues throughout the rest of the time that we see it. There's no discipline here to stop this from happening. Our first important dialogue from Psychic Friend Fredbear occurs in minigame 3. He left without you. He knows you hate it here. These lines simply indicate that Michael is taking out some kind of anger on the crying child. He doesn't want to be around him, but he can't just leave him anywhere. He leaves him in a public place where their father is present. He has disdain for the crying child, he knows he hates it here, but he's not outright violent toward him, at least for now. Minigame 5 kicks it up a notch. The implication is that Michael locked him in this storage closet thing. This is less safe than simply leaving him in the pizzeria, but the important angle to look at here is this is yet another example of Michael putting distance between himself and the crying child. It seems he's tired of being around him. We see from the earlier minigames that their house is completely vacant except for them. It's likely that Michael is required to supervise CC 24/7, and for a boy who's likely not much older, this would be stressful and a pain. And now for the last minigame. And Markiplier's here too. We see that it's the crying child's birthday, yet there's no friends around. It's CC and Michael's friends. None of the kids from the other minigames are here. Interestingly, CC is on his knees with his arms in front of him, looking directly at Michael. He looks to be begging to go home. Michael's friends make fun of him, and Michael teases him too. It's important to note how he uses words like hilarious and snarkily says, "He will love it." It's clear he intends to harm with words, but I don't think his actions are one of raw maliciousness. These little jabbing insults are honestly something an older brother who's annoyed by his younger brother would do. Or maybe I was just abused. I'm looking at you, Jake, you asshole! Michael continues the taunting until... Wait, Markiplier, what's wrong, man? Dude, it's oh no! The last we see of Michael is in the next minigame, where he apologizes. He seems at a loss for words. He doesn't try to explain himself, he just says he's sorry. We end the minigame with my biggest enemy saying his famous, "I will put you back together." And that's all we get of Michael in his adolescence. These minigames show us a tense relationship between two siblings. One of animosity, but not truly violent intent. Michael is sick of having to take care of this kid. He keeps trying to get away from him, lock him places, scare him away, leave him down the street in a random pizzeria. You might want to be careful, man. It seems the longer Michael has to put up with this, the angrier he gets, and there's no counseling or help from their actual parents. Fed up that he's trying to drag Michael away from the fun he's having, Michael partakes in some particularly harmful bullying, which he will regret for the rest of his life. Now, on to Sister Location. Mike is older, and off the bat, it's possible we glimpse some of Michael's Afton privilege. This might be reading too much into things, but in FNaF VR, we use the shitty elevator in these minigames because the regular one is
well above your pay grade.
But Mike has full access to this elevator, possibly because it is in his house. Mike has also labeled his hand unit similarly to how he labels the logbook, and not much else is important in Night 1. Ah, the Immortal and the Restless. These absolutely have lore implications, just like every other post-night gameplay visual or cinematic. There are two common interpretations of the Immortal and the Restless. One is that Clara represents Mrs. Afton and William is Vlad. The other is that Michael is Clara and Vlad is William or Fazbear Entertainment. I'm going to say that Clara is meant to be Michael. And actually, let's get all of these out of the way now, so I don't keep coming back to them at the end of every night section. For the first episode, pay particular attention to these lines from Clara.
You're the only vampire I've ever loved! You need to be part of your son's life!
And this line from Vlad.
I can't be a father!
From the corny dialogue, we can see that Clara still has love in her heart for Vlad, even though she's very angry with him. I think this is meant to be indicative of the way Michael feels about his father. Not in a romantic way, that's weird, but in the sense that he cares, but is very conflicted and angry. The lines about the baby are usually tied back to Elizabeth or the murders. Essentially, Elizabeth and the murders, two things that William's responsible for that he's not telling Michael about. I think these interpretations are good, but there's one I like just as much and don't see called out very often. Again, we're going with the interpretation now that Michael is Clara just for this video. Pay attention.
You need to be part of your son's life!
It's the crying child, and that's why Michael is Clara. He's had to play the role of a parent for this kid, with no help from William. I do feel that the next episode pokes some holes in that, as when talking about the baby, Clara gives discernible characteristics that tie it to Vlad. And I don't see a necessity in the plot for William denying his adopted son if Cece's adopted. So for this, the interpretation that the baby is referring to one of William's crimes is better. Michael is seeing things that tie the crimes back to William, but William's denying it. An interesting detail in the third episode is that Michael burns the house down. And this could represent two things. One, it's just meant to be a head nod to Michael being involved in the fires of FNaF 3 and 6. And two, going back to what I said earlier, the house on fire is meant to represent the crying child being dead, and William's repeated neglect has caused Michael to do something stupid, resulting in a disaster. This one's admittedly more of a stretch, though. Finally, take note, and I don't see enough people talking about this, that it's in the fake ending that Clara and Vlad embrace and get along again. This never happens. There can be no real mutual love and understanding here. I think the important thing to take out of these episodes is that Michael wants to love and trust William, but the signs of things he's doing or past things that he's done are getting in the way of that. He's upset with his father, but not in an outright rageful way. It's more somber than anything. Now let's delve into night 2.
It's a strange thing to want to do, to come here. I'm curious what events would lead a person to want to spend their nights in a place like this. Willingly. Maybe curiosity, maybe ignorance.
I wanted to play this audio because it's the first time this is mentioned in the series. The idea of night guards returning to these terrible jobs. Baby's emphasis on maybe ignorance can be read as, oh, the guard is ignorant to the fact that there's murder clowns down here. Or that Michael is, at this point in the timeline, ignorant to his father's true nature and the true intent in sending him down here. It's also worth noting that the Biddy Babs can occasionally ask,
Is it the same person?
We learn later that William frequented this bunker often to observe his little experiments.
Gas. Getting the gas up. The gas turns on regardless. What the fuck is this? Gas.
And that him and Michael share a resemblance. This line could be the first instance of an animatronic down here mistaking Mike for his dad. Night 3 is a whole lot of nothing. Night 4 is neat. Another aside, I want to mention this dialogue.
I think they noticed that you never left the building last night. The cameras were searching for you.
That second line, that the cameras were scanning for Michael, implies that this is an active establishment. And to have money to pay actual employees, Afton Robotics needs to be making money. And for Afton Robotics to be making money, they need to be renting out their robots. Which likely means that while William Afton is doing whatever he's doing, the fun times are generating passive remnant. And the only seemingly Michael-relevant thing on Night 5 is that Michael tanks the Scooper. The fake Ennard boss fight has very important lore for Michael. We enter the William Gas observation room. I don't even want to talk about you. Also, poor William. While he was down here torturing kids, he got fucking thirsty. He needed a little bev. Obviously, the go-to line is,
Isn't this why you came here? To be with her again?
This, and the game's title, clue us into the fact that we are at a location where our sister is. Michael came down here with the knowledge that his sister's body, or soul, or something was down here. That's important to remember. It's outright said to us. Lastly, let's play his famous custom night speech.
Father, it's me, Michael. I did it. I found it. It was right where you said it would be. They were all there. They didn't recognize me at first, but then they thought I was you. And I found her. I put her back together, just like you asked me to. She's free now. But something is wrong with me. I should be dead, but I'm not. I've been living in shadows. There is only one thing left for me to do now, I'm going to come find you. I'm going to come find you.
So, stringing that together as a narrative, Sister Location shows us that Michael has had a dicey relationship with his father. At this point in the timeline, he is hurt but doesn't hate him. He wants to trust him and does what he says in going down to the bunker. The animatronics confuse him for William, and he navigates the challenges present to put his sister back together, which I'm assuming means helps the consciousness of Elizabeth to slightly shine through, in that she acts slightly more like a bratty girl in the Scott game source code? Are you lying, Michael? You didn't put nothing back together. Henry literally says, "If you still even remember that name." Doesn't sound like he's referring to someone who's got it together, but this is Scott, not J.R.R. Tolkien. Okay, it's logbook time. I'll be going down this post from Faceless Bonnie, because it compiles a lot of the good information. The first thing the logbook tells us is that it's being written after Sister Location, as Michael references it a few times with exotic butters and casual bongos. The logbook also tells us that my mans is depressed as he jokes about dying on numerous occasions. First here when it says, "Write about your happiest day so you can have good memories when facing certain death," and here where it says, "Where do you see yourself?" and he draws a grave. This is one of the reasons why I doubt that Michael is the vengeful spirit. I think he wants to wrap things up. The logbook also lends some credence to the idea that we play as Michael in FNaF 3. In each of the night interlude little drawings, it's Foxy in the office, and we know that Michael has previously been depicted wearing a Foxy mask. Finally, he draws Nightmare Fredbear. Oh boy. I can only conclude 3 things from this. One is that the crying child entered inside of Michael Afton and is showing him these visions. The second is that when Michael Afton was a child, he went through the nightmare chambers. And the third is that Michael Afton went through the nightmare chambers as a child and dreams about them when he's older, which is why we hear the FNaF 1 phone call reversed. Anyway, the important thing that the logbook shows us is that Michael is kind of somber and depressed, has a resolute determination to take out his father or complete whatever he's doing, and has come into contact with Nightmare Fredbear at least once. Let me take this time to introduce my new theory. The characters from the books and games and movie that filled the same respective roles in the story have the same personality and character decision making. I'll talk about this more in other videos, but for now, let's take the FNaF movie to be an example. Michael Schmidt is the Night Guard, which Michael in the games is, and Vanessa is William Afton's child, which Michael in the games is. Under my theory, this means that Michael Afton will share traits and character from Michael Schmidt and Vanessa. We see in the movie that Vanessa's very conflicted about disobeying her father. She's almost fearful of him. And she says,
"If he's there, I won't be any use to you, believe me."
Isn't that an odd line? Doesn't that imply that William has some sort of control over her? We also see that, like Michael in Sister Location, Vanessa is assigned tasks by William. They fill the same role in the story. They're both reluctant followers. I'm gonna guess that William did something terrible to Michael when he was younger that leaves him in this state of terrified obedience until he finds the courage or reason to retaliate. It's possible that that terrible thing he experienced was the nightmare chambers. Let me know what you think of that theory. Now we can end off with FNaF 6 and then the theory interpretation lightning round.
Bittersweet, but fitting. You may not recognize me at first, but I assure you, that's still me.
FNaF 6 is very simple for Michael. I don't need to talk long. The important thing here is that William Afton confirms that we're his son by saying bittersweet but fitting, and implying that we should recognize him. Henry, in his closing monologue, also states that we are right where we want to be. Finally, this poster is more evidence for the theory that Michael's being used by his father, because the ventriloquist here has his hand up the ass of a dummy that looks just like him. So let's go over what we've learned. FNaF 4. Michael is an older brother tasked with caring for his younger brother, with no help from his father. This would be very stressful. And if William's around at all, he's a terrible father. He bullies the crying child in a way that turns out to be fatal, and regrets it for the rest of his life. Something happens between now and sister location to make Michael very obedient to William. Just like Vanessa in the movie, you can hear in his voice that he wants William's approval. He wants everything to work out, but he knows that's not gonna happen. He discovers things he can't ignore in the bunker. Miraculously surviving, he sets out to do the right thing. He doesn't have a manner of rage or revenge about him, but rather one that's somber and reads of finality. Done being his father's dummy, he cooperates with a plan that will see both of them dead for good. With all this covered, let's quickly go over some theories. Mike Dreamer. Yep, I actually think it's pretty likely. We have the evidence that we need. The FNaF 1 phone call and Michael drawing Nightmare Fredbear. Mike Frightguard. I also think this one's quite likely. The vengeful spirit refers to a they burning us. And the FNaF 3 Night Guard is represented by Foxy in the logbook. Mike Bro is almost guaranteed given this new screenshot from Into the Pit that shows a Foxy mask and exotic butters right next to each other. Mike Accomplice. I think this one's true too, but I don't think he ever has malevolent intent. I think he's either been told wrong information or is in a severely bad headspace at the time he's working with his father. And as much as I want to, I can't give a great opinion on Mike Fritz or Mike Jeremy, just because there's not much tying the two together, other than the fact that they get fired for the same reasons and both stay at the establishment longer than they should. And we're done. Oh boy, that took forever. But don't leave just yet, because I have some special announcements. You've stayed here this long. You must really enjoy listening to me, huh? Good for you. I'm starting a podcast soon with one of my friends called The Dreading Hour, where we'll cover movies and horror media. The first episode will be a full breakdown of the FNaF movie, looking into the lore within, and just dissecting the strength of the film as a film. I encourage you to like and subscribe for more of this series and that one. To support the channel further, optional TDreads memberships are now available, and you can become a certified TDreader for only $2. You'll get unedited full-length recordings of the Dreading Hour, and the ability to participate in community theories sections at the end of my new videos. I'll take non-members as well, but this is just to make sure you get in. So leave a question or a theory in the comments regardless. Thank you all so much for the support, it's been great. I'll be back with more videos soon. Ta-ta for now!